Hello! Hopefully you can all hear me. I'm going to wait until the Master of Ceremonies here tells me that you can actually hear me. But I can see people in the chat and there's a whole lot of you. Oh, thank you for joining me. Oh, there is indeed quite a few of you, isn't there? Right, so is it Affinity Publisher that has excited you, or is it just the fact that I am back after a little break? Let me know in the chat. So am I getting the nod? I am indeed. I'm live. Fantastic. So we'll just get on with it rather than anything else. So hello to everyone who is with us live. If you are watching later, you are very welcome. And we will get on with it. So fingers crossed. Oh, the slides are working. It's amazing. Right, I'm Elaine. If you have never heard of me, I am a long-time computer trainer, podcast host and YouTuber. I work with macOS, iOS and Windows at times. All types of applications, but specifically Affinity Designer, Affinity Publisher, Affinity Photo, Scrivener, Office and even at times Creative Cloud. So many and varied, let's put it like that, many and varied. Right, we are broadcasting in 1080p. That does not mean that YouTube is letting you watch it in 1080p. So there is a cog in the lower right hand corner. Go down there and make sure that you've got it set to high definition 1080. While you're down there, there is a like button. It would be rather good if you did find anything that you enjoyed tonight, if you click the like button. There's also a subscribe button. That would mean that you don't miss anything in the future. Right, so with tonight, Affinity is cross-platform. So there is a Windows version and there is a Mac version. There is very little difference between the two of them. So if you have a tutorial and you're on Mac and it's for Windows, the odds are it will translate beautifully. I'm using a Mac today, but if there's anything different, I will point it out. To be honest, with what we're going to look at, there really isn't that many differences. The difference is mainly focus on colour, and that's it. If I inadvertently say use the command key and you're on Windows, just substitute that for control and we'll be good to go. Right, this is what we're intending to do, time permitting. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some terms that you may hear, so you are up to speed with what they actually mean. We're then going to do some demonstrations, so I'm going to set up a document from scratch and I'm going to use that for the first 3 demos. The first bit's going to be a story layout, then I'm going to do different continuations for that story. Then we'll have a look at the specifics of text wrap for images and pull quotes, which has proved to be amusing today, but more on that later. Then I'm going to do a custom text wrap. And as a bonus, if we get time, I'm going to get devious with text wrap. So we will doubtless have some questions, or you will have some questions through the session. We will have a dedicated Q&A session at the end. But Mike will be collecting any questions that you have ready for that Q&A at the end. So put the questions in the chat anytime you think of them. Can you first of all, can you put a Q at the beginning? And that will make it easier for Mike. If it's about something specific, can you kind of say what that's about? Because if I come to the questions later and you just say, what was the shortcut for that? I'm not going to know what you're talking about. So be specific. It'll be great if you're specific. Right, let's get on with it then. So mastering page layouts in Affinity Publisher. Well, first of all, we need to talk about pages and spreads and terms that you may come across. So when we say a page, we generally think of a page. It could be an A5 page, could be an A4 page, but we talk about it in terms of a page. In Affinity Publisher, in addition to pages, there is another term that relates to pages, and that is spreads. Now, a spread is 2 or more pages, usually 2 to be honest. And if you're working with a A4, it'll be the width of 2 A4s and the height of 2 A4s. If you're working with A5, then it will be 2 A5s, and that is a spread. That's important, particularly when it comes to the output at the end if you're making a PDF. You might want to design it for print and have it in spreads, but when you come to produce a digital version, you might not want the spreads. So you need to know that there are these things called pages and there's these things called spreads. You can't really go wrong. I mean, obviously you can, but you're not going to. You can't really go wrong in terms of you could produce material that goes off to print and you produce a PDF version of it that looks very different, both from exactly the same file. So if you think, oh no, I've set it up wrong, it can all be fixed later. Other terms you may hear are verso and recto, and they're referring to the left-hand side or the right-hand side of a spread. If you're wondering about the etymology of that, it's a shortened form of Latin. Oh, this takes me back to my university days. I had to do Latin because I read law. So it actually comes from recto folio and verso folio, and that translates as on the right side of the leaf and the back side of the leaf. How cool is that? So just be aware you may hear those terms, and that's what it means. A lot of the time today, people will just say left and right. So, pages. We think of a page as a blank page. But when we get into Affinity Publisher, there are other elements to it. So, first of all, there is a pink area around that, and that is the bleed. If you're making a document to make a PDF for digital distribution, you don't need a bleed. It's to do with print. But it wouldn't be the first time that somebody said, oh, we're only distributing this digitally. And before I know it, they've got some budget and now they want to print it, and I didn't put a bleed on it. So I put a bleed on anything. It doesn't matter for digital distribution if you have a bleed or not. So you might as well prepare it as if it's going to print, because you can just ignore it if it's not. So the bleed is an extra bit beyond the edges of the page, and it's very descriptive. Bleed. It means that your content bleeds off the page into a catchment area. And the reason that that is there is when something goes to print and it's printed and then it's trimmed, they will trim off the bleed. But if you've only put content on the page area, you have not had it bleed off the page. When it is trimmed, it could be that it's out by a fraction of a millimetre and you've got a white edge all the way around it. So by putting your content on the page and beyond the page edges, you will always get a perfect print job. So that's why it's there. The next thing to think about is represented by the blue, and that is the margin. That's the area, if you're printing it yourself, you'll probably be really concerned about the margin. But the margin is the gap between the edge of your physical page and where your content ends on the page. So in this example, we have a top margin, a left margin, right margin. They're all the same. But the bottom margin is actually fractionally taller, and that's to give breathing space to the page numbers. So that should actually tell you that the margin is 4 separate settings. And they can be set completely independently of each other. They do not have to match. So in this case, I've got a much wider left margin, I've got a much taller bottom margin. Top margin's the same at 10 millimetres, and the right one is actually about 13 millimetres. So they don't have to match at all. However, if you want them to match, then it's a good idea to make sure that they match and not try and eyeball it later. It is a setting that you set up at the beginning, but it can also be changed after that initial setting. Then we have columns to be used as a placement guide. These are not seen in the output. They're a guide that's available to you while you're working. In this example, I've just put 3 columns on there, but you can have 1 column, 2, 3, as much as you like. It doesn't mean that I have to have the text in 3 columns. The guides that we're looking at here, the placement guides, are just guides. I could make my text 2 columns and use the 2 columns on the right. I could make it 3 columns wide. It doesn't matter. It's just there for a guide. So if you do want 2/3 of the page, it's easy to see what 2/3 of the page looks like. Just guides. There's another type of guide as well. These are the blue lines that you can just about see there. In different applications, if you've used InDesign, you will see that you don't see the columns that we see here. It's just a different way that Affinity Publisher works. So these guides enable you to mark a specific place, and you can have them vertical and horizontal. They look identical, they're blue lines, and just put them where you need to put them. Again, they are similar in terms of not being included in the output. That is not printed out, it's a guide there for you. Okay. So some design principles. As we go through the demonstrations, I probably won't say this is symmetric and this is asymmetric, but if you watch, you'll see things and you'll think, oh yes, now I understand. So some design principles, by no means every design principle, would be here all night, but I will be using alignment, and alignment can be used in two different ways. You can have, here I've got a balance and I've got a symmetric balance. So I've got them aligned on the left, aligned on the right, but there's also a balance involved that the left is the same as the right. Balance doesn't have to mean that it's identical though. So you can still have a balance, but it be asymmetric. So in some of the designs that I've used, I've got stuff at the top and then on the next page, I've got it further down. So it's still balanced. It's just an asymmetric version of that balance. Another thing that I will be using in the first example is contrast. Very high contrast, black and white. I'm not playing around with two versions of yellow here. It's black and white, so I've gone for a very high contrast look. And it can give it visual appeal, visual interest. Another thing that I'll be doing, and I'll be doing this in more than one way, is using a hierarchy. So that will indicate importance, and a hierarchy could be in terms of size, as it is in this example. It could be in terms of colour. So a hierarchy doesn't have to be like that, but there will be a principle of a hierarchy in there, particularly in the text where I've got headings in the text, and that will indicate the importance and the hierarchy within the text. I'll also, because I'm doing different examples of continuation pages, be using negative space in some of them more than others. So the first one has very little negative space. The other two have much more. So we'll be looking at negative space as well. Right, so the first example is a story spread, and this is just the opening spread of that story. So let's get in there. Haven't even got Publisher open, which may or may not be a good idea because sometimes it opens really slowly. And on the wrong... Oh, it's actually opened on the right screen. So that we're doing well. We're doing well so far. Right, I'm going to start completely from scratch. So I'm not sure if I've opened any panels that wouldn't be there for you. I have got panels on other screens, but we'll talk about them as we go through. So I'm going to File and New. And obviously I've got my screen a little bit smaller, so it's opening off the screen, but here we go. This is the template area. So I have templates for MacBytes, I have blank templates, but I'm going to use a preset and set it up in the presets. So I'm going for A4 and I'm choosing print. So across the top we have presets. They are custom presets of yours, which I don't have any. There's print presets, press ready, photo, web, devices and architectural. So I'm just going for print and it's going to be A4. While you can change everything that's on the right hand side here once you've got going, it's a good idea to set it up properly before you start. So to make it easier, I'm just going to fold all of these up and take it from the top. So the first one is layout. Now I do want this to be A4, so it's got the A4 sizes in it. Then I've got the orientation and I do want it to be portrait. I prefer my images embedded. If my images are embedded, the files are much bigger, but I'm not going to lose an image. If they're linked and I move them in my file system, they will be unlinked from the document. And the impact of that can be anywhere between not important at all and you'll be able to link it up and catastrophic if you can't find the images. So I always choose embed. It's only going to have a few pages anyway. If it was a book and it was a really highly designed book, then I may think twice. Again, you are not getting married to this. If you find that your 8-page brochure is now 128 pages, you can change this later and you can take embedded files and make them linked, and you can take linked files and make them embedded. So you're not here committing to something that can never be changed. 8 pages will do fine, and a default master means there will be one default master called a master, that will apply to it. So I'm just going to leave that set. I didn't make any changes in there. Right, that's the layout. Then we've got the pages. Do I want facing pages? Now, this is where I have a spread. And on the off chance I am going to send it to print, I'll leave it at facing pages that I want arranged horizontally. And it's going to start on the right-hand side, just like a standard magazine or a standard book. Then we have the colour. Now, this is going to depend on your output. At the moment, it's going to be digital, but I am going to accommodate it if it does need to go to print. If it is going to print, then it's probably going to be a CMYK of some description. But I'm just going to leave that alone for the moment. That will do fine for what we want. Then there's the margins, and the default margins within the new document are far too big for what I want. So I want them to be 10, but I want the bottom one to be 15. So I link them, and I put in 10 for the first one. That makes them all 10. Then I unlink that, and I change the bottom one to 15. And I am done. So I'm including the margins. And then finally, there's the bleed, which on this one isn't included. The reason it's not included is it's not press ready. It's just for print. I'm going to put a 3mm bleed all the way around that. 3mm is the usual. I have seen 5 on occasions. I've gone for 3 because the print company that we use, I've read all of their documentation and they want 3mm for the bleed. So I happen to know that. And that is all of that done. So most of the time I do leave all of these open. I've just closed them up to make it a little bit easier so we can concentrate on one part at a time. And then create. And we've got the file. So what we're looking at here on the left is the pages within the file. The master pages are at the top of the pages panel. And there is the master A that I said to create. We'll come back to that shortly. Then we've got the 8 pages, starting on the right with page 1. When I move on to 2 and 3, you can see instead of seeing a single page, we're seeing a double page because that is a double page spread. And we've got 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, and the last one is 8, and that is on the left-hand side. So, do we have any questions so far about anything to do with that? Doesn't look like it. If you do put that in the chat. Right, it's going to be a story that I'm doing here, a story spread. So instead of fiddling on this page, which would be the cover page, I'm actually going to go into here and think about what we need. There's a lot of things to set up, but to be honest, if you use a common document format, you'll probably end up making your own template and you won't have to do all the things I'm about to do. But it wouldn't be a great demo if I did that. So the first thing I'm going to do, because it's a magazine story style layout, I'm going to go into View and I am going to go down to the Baseline Grid Manager, which unhelpfully opens off screen. There we go. Now the Baseline Grid is a framework against which your text will be placed on the page without you having to go in and put spacing before and spacing after to try and get it to line up with things. So I'm going to turn on Use a Baseline Grid. Doesn't look like it's done anything. If I zoom in, it might. Or maybe I haven't got it showing yet. Let's have a look. Show the baseline grid. Right. And it still isn't showing. There we go. There it is. So once I zoom in, we can see it. That is the grid against which text will be placed. The benefit of doing that is if you are using multiple columns, you won't end up with snaking text going between them where it doesn't line up. You might not even notice, but I can guarantee you a reader will, and they'll point out your mistake. So let's put a baseline grid on it. I think for this one, I think I made it 16. I like it to be a multiple of 4. It works well. So I've created the baseline grid. On a normal size monitor, you would be able to see that. So just to show you in that dialog box that we had, the baseline grid, it says show it with a display threshold of 75%. And I am here working on a tiny monitor, which means that threshold is passed when I zoom into it. So that's why we're only seeing it then. Doesn't matter, it'll still work exactly as intended though. So I have got my baseline grid. At this point, I'm going to make a page, which is the opening for a story. Now, I could either make that on the page itself, or I could put the repeating elements on the master page. It depends if I'm going to use this again. Now, even if I'm not within this document, I might want to make a template of this for subsequent issues. So I will go in and make a new master. And this one's going to be the story start. So you can rename these masters. I'm going to make sure that it's facing, so it is a spread. Don't really have to make too many changes in here because pretty much everything is going to pull through from what I've already set up. The dimensions of the page, the preset of the page, what type it is, and the margins, which were 10, 10, 10 and 15. And that's all I need because the rest of the content of this master I'm going to add manually to it. Right, okay. So we've got our margins. That's the blue bit. If we zoom in a bit, the purple bit at the edge is the bleed. So the purple is the bleed. The edge here, the white bit, where the white bit finishes, is the edge of the page. The blue lines across are the baseline grid. And these blue that are slightly deeper are the margins. So that's what we've got. Right, this one's fairly straightforward, I think. What I need to do is get my PDF up so I can see what I'm doing. Okay. Right, this is the start of a story. So remember that we're working here on a master. And the first thing we're going to do is add some contrast to it. So I'm going to get a shape, just the rectangle shape, and I'm going to draw that rectangle over the whole of the verso page, the left-hand side. You'll notice it goes into the bleed. If I made that go up to the edge of the page, you'd see the bleed is darker and it's not the colour of the shape. So I'm making sure that it goes right to the edge of the bleed. And I'm going to make it black. So I'm going to have to put some white text on here at some point. But I've got the black on the left-hand side there. I actually only need a couple more items on this page before I start applying it to the pages within the file and start creating it. But one thing I'm going to need over here, and I'm going to put it up with the margin, I need some text. So this is my headline. And you'll see I can't read that at the moment because it's black text. So I'll make the text white. Let's go in there, make the text white. It's not the style that I want, so I want to use a font called Big Caslon. Right, which looks nice for my headline. And I want that to be, I do believe, 72 points. Right, and I'm going to put that up the margin there, so it should be touching on the left-hand side and the top. Right. To be absolutely precise at this point, it would be a good idea to switch to the text styles and make a text style for that. This isn't a session about styles. We've done one about text styles. Mike can put the link in for that now. So all I'm going to do with this is make a quick style of it. I'm not going to worry about this being absolutely perfect with styles. Otherwise, again, we'll be here all night. But I will make a style for it. So I'm going to click the paragraph style at the bottom. I'm going to call this headline, but I'll call it headline light because it's actually white. Then over on the other side, I need another one of these, which I can either draw out again, or I could take a copy of this one and paste it in and move it over there. It is still going to be a headline. I'm just going to have the ability to have one on the right or the left. But I don't want it formatted as headline light. So I'm going to hit this. And I'm going to change the name of it to dark. And the reason I'm not using black and white is I've got a dark background, so I'm going to need a light header, but it might not be white. It could be yellow. And that way I don't have to rename the styles. In here, though, I do need to make a change. So it's based on headline light, which means if I change the font of headline light, both of them will change. But I do in the colour need this one to have a black fill. So we'll go in and choose a black fill for that. Awesome. Right, the other thing that I'm going to need in here is an indication of where I want the text to start. Two ways to do that. I can drag this down and try and place it at the 100mm mark. And then I have to start being very careful, and then it's never quite right. So that's one option. But the other option is to go to View and go to the Guides Manager. And we can do multiple things here. So in the horizontal guides, I can actually hit the button at the bottom. It puts it bang in the middle. But I can go in and just type 100, and it's far easier and faster to get that in the right place. Right, the other thing that I need, I can't for the life of me remember how many columns I put in. I think it was 4. Let's go for 4. So I'm going to hit that and move this up to 4. And what's happening in the background is that you can see here the columns being represented by the grey thing. But like I said, it doesn't print. There is a special shortcut key. I must admit, I don't know what this is on Windows. Maybe Mike could find out. It is Control and W, and I do mean Control and W on Windows. And what that will do is toggle off all the Affinity Publisher detritus. So you can see how that would look if it was printed out. So that is a handy key to know and to toggle on and off. I toggle that on and off all the time. Right, I need one more thing on here, which is I need somewhere to put the text. So the text is going to start on the right-hand side here. I will draw the box out where I want it, which is from the margins to this guide at the top. At the moment, that is 1 column of text. I need to make it 2 columns of text. Now, I've divided the page into 4, but you can see if I have the guides and columns showing me 4, that doesn't mean I have to use 4. And everything lines up perfectly. My gap in the middle here is bang on the centre, and I'm using 2 of these columns to have 1 column of my text. Right, there is a little bit more that we need to do with that though. Right, in here, I need to have a style that works. So I'm going to need some text, and you can do that with text, insert filler text. That's not actually bad, but it's not perfect. It's not what I want. So if I go in here and select that, I'm going to make, in fact, I've got a body style in here, which might work wonderfully. The default is the body style. So if I make that the body style, it's still not right for what I want. It's a little bit too big and the font's wrong. So I'm going to edit that body style so it matches what I want. In the font family, I want that to be Avenir, and I want that to be 10. Right, that's one way of doing it. Is that the right way of doing it? It really depends. If this is an exception to all the other text, yes, that's absolutely the way to do it. But I am going to undo it. So I'm going to go back in there and make sure that that is set to no change and 12. Okay, right, because if this is what you want throughout your document, then a better way to do it is to notice in the body style that it's based on base. Base being the top of the style tree. And then what you do with all of the other styles is you style them with their exceptions. So at the moment, this is the base style and a font size of 12. So what font is it then? Well, it's whatever is defined in the base style. So if I go over to the base style and edit that, that will tell us what that font is, and it's Arial. So if I change the base style to Avenir and OK, I do get Avenir in here. If we go back into the body style, it's the wrong size, it's 12. In here is specifying the size. So I'm going to make that 10, which is what I want. So now it's the base style plus a font size of 10. And that is perfect. So I've got that. Now, I may have needed to make more changes to that. So let me have a look. What else? Oh, yes, I've forgotten one thing. I need a byline. I need the name of the person who's written the story. So I'm going to take this headline and I'm going to pull that down to there. So I held the Option key and got a copy of it. Don't want it that big though. So that one needs to be probably about the 24 mark. That's fine. And move that over there into about the right place. At which point I need to make sure that that is aligned to the right. So there we go. And that one needs to be aligned to the right. And I didn't do that, even though I did define the style. So I'm going to align it to the right. Now the style doesn't match anymore. So my headline dark, which is somewhere down here, isn't it, doesn't match. So I'm going to right click on it and say update it. And what that will do is whatever is selected, it will update that style accordingly. So now if I were to apply that style, it would be right aligned. So I think we've got everything there. Apart from the fact that this in here is just styled and it's not actually a byline style. So I'm going to type in their byline so I know exactly what it is. And I'm going to go down and make another style. We will call that byline. It says it's based on heading dark, and that's actually fine because, again, if we change the font, it'll all ripple through. But I don't want it to be hang on, yes I do, I want it to be 24. The headline dark was 72. So my changes are applied at the bottom and I can just click OK. And now everything will ripple through. We have created our first master and it's got everything on that we need. However, before I go any further, we don't need this dummy text in there, so we can get rid of that. Right, I'm going to go down to 2 and 3. And this is the page I'm going to put the story on. So I need to apply the master. So I'm just going to drag and drop it onto pages 2 and 3. It's quite common that you'll forget to move from the master and you'll start putting the content in the master. We've all done it. Trust me, that's common. Right, I'm now going to start putting the text in that I need, etc. So somewhere in here, I've got the text of the story, which will be, let's get that out of the way, in there. So that is the text of the story. It's actually a story off my blog. So it's about 1,500 words. And what I'm going to do is just select the whole thing, copy, and paste it in to this text frame over here. So there it is. Now, this first line is actually the story. That's the title. So your app died is going to be part of what I put in as the headline over here. So I'm going to paste that in. But if I paste that in, you'll see, oh dear, it's taken the style with it. We don't want that. I actually have a shortcut key set up to paste without style. I do that with an app called Alfred. But however you do it, what you want to do is paste without the style. So I'm just going to paste that in and we have your app died. But what I'm going to do is put these underneath. So just to fill the space a little bit better. The subheading for this was, what's your exit strategy? So I'm going to cut that from there and put that on that side with a question mark on it. And I'm going to have to make that go over 2 lines. My byline is me, so I'll put my name in there. And now in the text, I can get rid of that and bring it up a bit. So what we're looking at in here now, we've got a paragraph of text that's formatted, another paragraph of text that's formatted, and that's fine. But in here, we do have some headings. So a demise is a heading, another demise is a heading, and an exit strategy is a heading. By default, you will have heading styles in here. You can go for a heading 1, but I would say with this, it's more likely a heading 2. So all I need to do is just select the text and choose the heading style that's in here, and I'm choosing a heading 2. Now, if I want to change that, so if I'm like, well, that's not bad, but it's not perfect, like there's a huge gap and stuff like that, I can change that by changing the heading. So if we go in and have a look at that, what do we have in there in relation to this? So let's make it so we can see it. We really want the space after to be not much. So if I take that down to 6, that's much better. So I've edited the style, which means that all of these have changed and I don't have to go in and do each one manually. I will be revisiting this because as you can see over here, we've got some red stuff going on. What is this? The triangle pointing to the right means there's more text than can be shown in this box. The eyeball will toggle that text on and off. So if I hit the eyeball, it will show you the rest of the text. And it will go on and on. There it is down here. So I don't particularly want to see that. When I create the continuation sheet, I'll be able to load the text in here and link it with the continuation sheet. But for the moment, that's absolutely fine. Right, next thing I need to do, I need an image on here. So I've got an image already there available, but I need to put an image placeholder. Now, you could just dump the image on there, but it's easier and better to have it in a placeholder. So you have this image placeholder from the tools, which will give you a rectangle, and you have a circular one there as well. I'm just going to eyeball that and say it's about that size that I want it. Notice that the placeholder is going into the bleed. Right, the next thing I'm then going to do, I'm going to scoot off and go and find my image, which I have in an app over here. So I'm going to drag in the image and I'm going to hover over that placeholder and drop it in. Right, that gives me two tools in here now. I've got this option at the bottom. So I'm just going to get this so we can see it. I've got this option at the bottom which will make that bigger or smaller. And you can see you've now got two blue frames. That means it's filling it, and then that is making it even bigger. So I think filling it is working quite nicely. But if the placement isn't right for me, if I want to rotate that, I know, why would I? But I can also move it as well. So if I wanted it up there rather than down here, I could do that as well. I actually think that one looks absolutely fine where it is. But these controls, if you drag and drop an image, you may not see these controls. It all has to be set up right for those controls to appear, and those controls are so useful when it comes to images. So we have only got one more thing to do in here, which is the bit on the right is looking okay, but it would look even better if it had a couple of images in it. So I'm going to get this rectangle again. I'm going to draw one out there. No, I'm not like that. I'm not. Wrong key. Right. And it needs to be 45 millimeters. So that worked well. Right. And I'm just going to place that. I think it was around here. Not quite sure where I placed that. Let's have a look. Oh, it was right down the bottom. That's right. I had it right down the bottom there. And I can duplicate this, so I'm going to copy it, I'm going to paste it, and now I've got another copy. And this one is going to belong somewhere around the midpoint up there. But you'll notice that these images, this image had nothing to worry about in terms of text. This image placeholder has text behind it, so surely if we put an image in it, we're not going to see the text. And indeed, we're not. So let's go get the image that's going to live in there when we can't see the text. Now, we need to wrap this text around this image. And some people get confused about, well, which element, so there's the text block and there's the image block, which block do I add the wrap to? You add the wrap, in this case, to the image. So you add it to the one you want to impact the text, not necessarily the one with the text in it. So the wrap option is available from the menu there, and you have a lot of options in here. At the moment, the default is there's no wrap at all. You could tell it to jump, which would mean you wouldn't have text on the right or the left of it, which looks ridiculous. Square is better for this image, and you can tweak it even more by changing the distance from the text, or having it on both sides or just the largest side. Now, changing that to just the largest size would make no difference here because it's in the middle of it. You know, it doesn't have, its position is such that there's no text on the right-hand side. So it doesn't need it. All right, this one up here will make that jump as well, and that probably needs to come down a bit more because this has impacted the text flow. So I now need to add the second image up there. So that is another app that died on me. So drag and drop that in, and I can tweak these. I can make them bigger, I can make them smaller, I can crop them. With this one, I noticed I didn't like the placement of the eye. It was a bit too close. So in here, what I can do is, I'm looking there on the left-hand side of it, I can push that a little bit more, make it 2 millimeters, and that lines up much better. Now, obviously, if this moves up and down, it might need changing back. It just depends. But where it is at the moment is where I'm leaving it, and that looks fine to me. So we have got our opening to the story. If I use Control and W again, you can see we lose all of the detritus, and that is the opening to the story. But there's more to that story than that. So now we need to move on to the next bit. So we've done our story opening, but we're moving on to the story spread, but it's a different spread, and it's a continuation spread. Right, again, it's very easy to just think, okay, this story is going to continue on pages 4 and 5, I'll just dive in there and do it. But if this is a magazine that has 120 pages and 15 stories, you may want to reuse the continuation. So it would be a good idea to create a master page for it. So back up to the master pages. It offers master C because it's the third one, but this is going to be story continuation number 1. Again, I don't have to make any changes in here. These are the really basic settings and I want them to be the same. So let's add that. And this is story continuation 1. Now, this one I kept really simple, just so we could see the story unfold and the whole thing appear on that page. So what I need to do in here is Command and W, turn everything back on so I can see it again. And I'm going to create 2 text boxes that just fill that in. Now, when we did this the last time, it only had 1 column, but we specified 2 columns for the last one we drew, and it remembers that. So up in the top right there, it remembers the 2 columns, and I'm going to put a second one. That is all I need to do, apart from one thing. When this is applied to a page and the text flows, I need the text to flow from this box into this box. And although this triangle isn't lit up in red telling me that there's an overflow because there's nothing in it at the moment, I can still click it and hover over this and click it, and now those 2 frames are linked. That literally is, I think, all I need to do in there looking at this. So, story continuation 1 is pretty plain, isn't it? But the benefit is, if we go to 4 and 5 at the moment, there's nowhere to put the text. I would have to manually add the text. So I might as well do that from up here and drag that down to 4 and 5. So, in 4 and 5, when I click, I now have the box waiting for the text. But where's the text? Well, it isn't a case of pasting the text in again. That won't work well at all. You'll end up with the story repeated. But if we go back to this page and we click on this frame, we did have the red triangle telling us that there's an overflow. So if I click on that, when I hover, I get a different mouse pointer and a chain on it. So click on there. And that, again, gives me another mouse pointer. So I'll just put it underneath exit. No, it's going to have to go there. Right, it now looks like a little plane with a cross on it. What I'm doing there, it's loaded into the cursor. And as I hover over this, just like we created the link between the one on the left and right here, when I click that, it links this frame to the one on page 3 and everything comes through. Right, we do have a little bit of work to do though, because although the text isn't bad, it's not perfect either. We manually had to put in the headings because it came from plain text. An Affinity Publisher with plain text has no concept of hierarchy at all. I don't understand why it doesn't import Markdown. Oh, my life would be complete if it did, but it doesn't. So I'm going to have to mark this up manually. I will be doing a session in the future about bringing things in from Word, but that's a whole other bag of hurt. So to keep things simple and everybody on the same level playing field here, this is text. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to put my heading 2 on these headings that should indeed be heading 2s. There was the best bit, which was new features. That's my favourite bit. So let's put that on there. The glass can be half full. So that's a heading 2. We're sure there was another one. There we go. That's a heading 2, I think. Yep, it is, because that's a checklist. And there's another one there. Right, I think we've got them all. 1, 2, 3. Yep, I've got them all. Right, still got a bit of an issue, which is these here are a bulleted list. And it's not pretty because they've come through from text. So it's dashed on this side, but then a huge gap, and they're not really proper bullets. But there's 3 of them there. So you could take away those dashes first. I wouldn't. Do that second, because it just happens that that has broken quite nicely for me, apart from I've got an extra one up here. And if I take away the dashes, I'm going to be thinking, was that a bullet or not? So just leave it. I'll go through here. We'll do these 3 first. Just select them, and in your default text styles, you will already have a bullet style, bullet 1. And you'll see you get proper bullets. So that's what we had at the top there. That's what we've got when we format it correctly, but we do still have the dashes in. So you do need to delete. So it's delete, delete, down, down, delete, delete, and rinse and repeat for all of them. This one, not styled properly, so I will style that with the bullet and delete backwards twice. And I've got these 2 here that need the same thing happening to them. So just select it, apply the bullet style, in here, delete, delete, down, down, delete, delete. Not bad. You could leave that as it is, or you could maybe change the spacing a bit, but I actually think that's looking okay. Now, that lines up much nicer with the bullet than when it was just plain text. We've got exactly the same problem over here with this numbered list. So I'm going to select the whole of those. Again, I'm not deleting the numbers yet. I have over here numbered 1, 2 and 3. So I want it numbered 1. It makes it much neater. In fact, it puts the whole 10 in the same column. I will, however, have to delete these. But you'll notice that everything lines up much better than when it's just text. So that time I have to do delete, 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 down twice, delete, 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 down, delete, delete. I mean, obviously, it's just a pain. It's not something that... Don't delete too much, woman. It's not something that's difficult. It's just mind-numbingly boring. But the reason that I don't delete the numbers first is while I'm doing this, I can make sure they are numbered correctly. So if you take them away first, you don't get that benefit. Okay, so now we've got everything formatted fine. There was a couple more things that I wanted to put on this page. So one was another image. That was up here. And again, it needs to be, I'm holding the shift key down so it's square. And it needs to be 45. So that's not quite right. So I'll type in 45. It's just easier. Much quicker. I also need to put the wrap on that. So work out exactly where I want it. And then put the wrap on it. So bringing up the wrap again. And I'll go for square on that again. Something weird has happened there. Why does everything work in rehearsals? My bulleted lists disappeared. What on earth made my bulleted list disappear? Oh, where's it gone? What are you doing to me? No, it's all wired up properly. Let's keep on doing till it comes back. Stay there. Right, let's go and put that on again and don't disappear on me. Did I delete that? Could it possibly have been me, do you think? No, of course not. Right, let's put that on there. Okay. And all I was going to put in that one was yet another app. Only I think I binned this one. I don't think this was catastrophic. I think I binned this one. So a third app icon in there. And again, I can make that bigger, smaller, move it round, whatever I need to do with it. Right, the next bit was just, I had this white space over here, this negative space. And I thought it would be nice if there was something in there. So I decided to draw another image placeholder in. So about there, I think I had it. And this is the image that I've got for it. Because it's indicated, it's right next to this checklist here. So I'm going to drag in my checklist image, which is quite big. So I'm definitely going to need to use this to make it smaller. But as I bring it in, I don't need a lot of the image. I just want this checklist part of it. So actually, I'll make it bigger. I want that to really fill that. So let's move this around. It needs to be at least there. It doesn't, however, need that bit at the top. So I'll take that bit down and might make that bit bigger. Move it over. And it's in the bleed. So that's absolutely perfect, apart from one thing. I don't like the background on it. It looked white, but it's not. And I need to make it white. You could fiddle and you could go into Affinity Photo, or you could just do it the quick way. The quick way being, in our layers here, that is the picture. So if I fold this up, there's our app icon, there's the picture frame. In the picture frame, if I copy and paste, or Command and J, which will duplicate, I will get 2 copies of this, one bang on top of the other. If I then change the blend mode to vivid light, it will knock out that background and it will look white. What it's doing is, it's doing a mathematical calculation between the 2 images, and it's losing the dirty looking background. And that is continuation number 1. Right. I've got another continuation page that was slightly different. So this is just to give you an idea of what you can actually achieve in terms of the number of master pages you have available. Give your magazine or whatever it is you're creating a similar look, but there's a variation in it. Not every story is laid out exactly the same. You don't have to do that. So to do that, we need to go back to the masters and create another master. Well, we'll just make it master 2. What do we call it? Story continuation. Story continuation. And this one's going to be the second one. So it's just a different version of it. Making sure that I am on the story continuation, this was what I did. I added in a 10 centimetre in here, which is 100 millimetres. One of these. And again, see how tricky it is to get that absolutely right? But with it there, go into the view and go to the guides master, and I'm 0.1 of a millimetre out, but it's got to be right. So I'll put that in. Right. In this one, I am going to have a picture across the top. So up to this guide, I want a picture. So I'm going to put a picture placeholder on the master all the way across the top. I then need some columns for my text. So I'm going to make sure in here, we've got our guide shown, but let's go to our guides manager. We haven't got the 4 that we had. So let's put 4 of those in there. And yeah, I think I did that differently. So I've got the 4 in there. I need to put some text in. So I'm putting a placeholder in here really, and I'm making it 2 columns, but it's going to straddle 3 columns of the grid. And then I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side. So taking up 3 columns. Then I'm just going to put something on for ornamentation's sake, which is I'm going to use the rectangle. And I'll line it up with that, take it down here, make it quite skinny. So 3 millimetres maybe. Oh, it's not twanging properly, is it? That's all right, we can deal with that. Right, let's make it 3 millimetres and see if that's okay. It is, but it's moved it, so it's not lined up properly. So I need to move it so it is lined up properly. I'll make it black, but black might be a bit harsh. So it might look better if it was like quite a dark grey, like that. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to put it on the other side as well. So it's in this column guide over here. That's why it's useful to have these, even though they're not mirroring the text that you've got. But there's my 2 columns of text. There's my other 2 columns of text. I need to do one more thing, and often it's the thing that you will forget. This text frame needs to be linked to that text frame or the text won't flow. So I just need this triangle at the bottom, need to click that, and we are done. Now, in order to demonstrate this, I should probably have saved this actually, shouldn't I? That would be catastrophic. So let's put it in there as story. Right. I need to change or add this somewhere, but basically this one here is hooked up to this at the top. So what I intend to do with that, and this is how you can try different layouts and it not be catastrophic. At the moment, this has got nothing applied to it. So I'll drag this story continuation and put that on top of it. And it's good to go. But it can't have any text in it because the text is married to this one here. But if I go into here, we could unwire it, couldn't we? Let's have a look here. If I grab hold of that, that line is indicating, if we can just take it down, it's actually indicating that it's hooked up to that one. Don't really want it hooked up to that one. So if we go in here, we could hook it up to that one. And now it's not hooked up to the other one. What you can see is the back end of the story is still in there. Oh dear. But that's because this isn't big enough. There isn't enough space for the whole thing. So if I were to add in 2 more pages, don't need a master one. What I need to do is add 2 pages. So add 2 pages after page 7. Don't want it after 8. 8 is the back of it. Master-wise, I want it to have story continuation 2 on it. So let's put that in there. So this is our first continuation of it. This is continuation 2, instance 1, and this is instance 2. And from there, we should be able to link that, which is going back to the other one, getting complicated, into this one here, and the story will finish off there. This one will then be blank, but we don't have to panic because everything that's on that page in terms of the graphic and the graphic over here, if we decide that we don't like this layout, we want to go back to that layout, all you need to do is go back to where the story starts and then click it and add it back to 4 and 5 instead of 6 and 7. So, but we're happy with this one at the moment. What we do need to do is to put an image in there, and I have the perfect image. So let's go get it, considering that we're talking about software. It is quite big. Are you going to drop that in there? Oh, we've got a message on the wrong screen. Right, at this stage, it's working on the principle you're embedding these and it's a bit big. And I'm like, I know, but I'm in charge. So I want it to remain embedded. So do you want to link to your images to reduce the document size? No. No, I don't. Leave me alone. And then it puts that in. From there, I can then scale that as much as I like, and I can reposition it as much as I like. That looks about right, though. Okay, so that gives you a completely different, let's use Control and W, a completely different layout, an alternative continuation layout in there. Do we have any questions that need to be answered right now? Mike's not saying a word. Oh, we don't. Right, that's fine then. Awesome. So I will move on to the third and final layout, which was just a variation on the other one, but really just in principle to show you what you can achieve. So the third one, we need a new master. This one was story, don't spell it wrong, continuation, and this was the third one. And it was a variation of the other 2, to be honest. So let's open that up. This is story continuation. I'm going to need an image placeholder over here. I do need the Control and W so I can see the bleed to cover the entire page with my placeholder. This one over here was going to have 2 columns of text, but for that I need to put on my guides. So I'm going to put 4 columns on there, just like before. Don't need a horizontal guide on this one. What I am going to do, make it faster, is to go back to this one, because this thing here, I want one of these that is taller. So instead of creating a new one, I'm going to go in there, paste it in, and just stretch it out to the full height. You can't see that middle handle until you zoom in. and then you can stretch it up to where it needs to be, which is there. So that's that one. The next thing I need is my text placeholder, and this one is going in there. It's going to take 3 guide columns, but it's going to have 2 columns of text in it. And that's it. That's all we need for that one. How that then works is I will go down to here. We didn't add the second one to that, but never mind, because we needed 2 because there was more text. I'm just going to put 2 new pages in after page 9, which will allow us to use the 3rd story continuation that we've got. So drag and drop that down to there. And again, remember that this story is coming from the first page, which was this one. So to try out this one, I'll click in there and load up that. At the moment it's linking to 6 and 7, but I'm going to link it in there. Again, there isn't enough of it, so I would need another page or another spread. So 2 more pages, this time after page 11. So that's this one here. I need to apply to that a master. So I'm going to apply a master. This is another way of applying a master by choosing it from in here, continuation 3, and OK to that. This one in here, where the text is, let's take that and put that in there. And I think we've just about managed to squeeze the text in there. I do have an image that I'm going to put over here, and that will finish it off nicely. That one definitely needs moving. So getting the move tool and moving that over there. So it's just at the top. I need to change that slightly because I've got this black line off that monitor. So what I'm going to do is make that a bit bigger and then move the image in there so it fits nicely. Perfect. Yay! And that, let's do a Control and W so you can see what it looks like. That's the way that you can have multiple masters giving you continuation options and see them all without having to redesign anything or delete anything. So I would just choose whichever one looked best there. Okay, so that's it for that demonstration. So let's save that while I head back.
There is a question from Tracy.
Okay, let me find the question from Tracy. Right. Is this the one? Is it advantageous to use Affinity Publisher when creating a 1-page brochure, 1 side of paper? As opposed to what? Affinity Designer, maybe? Really what you're familiar with. There's always the option that, you know, what starts off as a 1-page brochure on one side, all of a sudden you want something on the back side of it, or you want to make it 2 or 3, or you want to repurpose it. It doesn't actually matter though, because, and I've done a couple of videos that explain this, and I will be showing it in one of the demos, but it doesn't really matter because Affinity Designer, Publisher and Photo all use the same file format. So if you've started in Designer and now all of a sudden it needs to be 2 pages, you can just open that file. You don't even have to save as, you can literally just open it. So it doesn't really matter, whatever you're most comfortable with. For example, if this 1-page flyer has a pricing table at the bottom, then the only one of the 3 apps that has the table functionality exposed to you is Affinity Publisher. So even if it's a single page, if there's a table on it, yes. If there's other things that you want to use that are only in Designer, then start with Designer. But you can hand it around as needed. Right, another question. Quick question, maybe already covered it. Photo books will often have a photo over 2 pages. Should there be no margin or bleed in the centre? It's going to depend if you're sending this out for print or if you're doing a PDF. Generally speaking, no, in the middle, I put one on, didn't I? That software one. You can just spread it across it and it will be fine. Even though I've got a bleed around the edge, I have sent documents like this to print that have had images across the page and it works out perfectly. So you shouldn't really have a problem with that. No, you don't need to fiddle around in the middle. Some apps do, but it's really messy and really awkward. There was once, before I had Affinity Publisher, I had this 8-page brochure and it needed to go for print. And I had to do the pages separate, and each one had to have an inner bleed and a margin, and it was a nightmare. And I ended up having to send the pages as individual pages and then send extra instructions for how the whole thing was married up. But Publisher, I've not had that problem at all. So you should be okay with that. Right, okay. I need to see things to see what I'm doing next. We've done all of that, haven't we? We've done all of that as well. And that. Oh, could I possibly be running out of things to do? No, don't be silly. Don't be silly. No, I've got, let's get into here. I've got basic text wrap, which is going to be really quick because you've pretty much seen it. You have pretty much seen it. You've seen it around images, but there are other options. So let's get, we'll do it in here. It'll be easier, she said. Right, we've got some text in here. And you've seen me put it around images, but there's other things that you might want to use a text wrap on. So one of these is a pull quote. So if I put a text box here like this, and it can be a text, it can actually be, because I've got artistic text there, or a text box, depends on how big it is. So let's put a text box on it there. I don't want 2 columns, so it's remembered 2 columns, and I only want 1. And in here, I want to put something like nice to have features. So nice to have features. Now, obviously, you can't see it because the text is white. So I need to change the text to black. I'd probably need to put some kind of format on it so it looks a little bit more elegant than that. And you can see that is actually using a bullet style at the moment. That must have been the style that we had. So let's get rid of that. By going back to the body style and then formatting it. Have I got a quote style? I don't think I've got a quote style. And byline won't do. So let's just fix that. And with it being a pull quote, you probably want it a bit bigger than that. So we'll have it like that. We'll then centre it. And we're going to centre it vertically as well. So it's in the middle of that text box there. That is our pull quote. But it doesn't look like a pull quote because it looks like it's floating in the middle of nowhere, which indeed it is. Right, what we're going to need to do with that is apply some formatting to it. So I've got the paragraph panel here. To save you having a heart attack, I've closed everything up because there's just acres of it. The one I want is right down the bottom. So it's something I want to happen to the paragraph. And it's a decoration that I want. And I want there to be a line at the top and a line at the bottom, which indicates nicely that it's a pull quote. But it's far too close to it. So while I've got that turned on, it's far too close, particularly at the top. Right, I also in here, why is this not moving? These are all the items under decoration. So I don't want it to be 1 point. I want it to be thicker than that. So maybe even like up to 3. But it's far too close at the top. But you can change that here. So at the moment it's 0. But you can actually pull it back like that. So I think the bottom would work nice with 1. So I've got a 2 at the top and a 1 at the bottom. And I've got these lines that are the width of the text. And as the text expands, the lines will expand. Right. The principle of that is exactly the same no matter where it is. So at the moment, it's a text box. If I put that over there, let's put it in the middle here. There's nothing wrapping around it. But just like the image, you have the text wrap options at the top and you can make that square. But even that doesn't look right because now I've got text on the left and I've got text on the right. So for this one, I'd set it to jump and the text will avoid it totally, which is perfect. But with a pull quote, you tend to have that somewhere in the text that makes sense. So if I put it down here, let's say it makes sense there. If I add text to it, the text is going to flow away and then it won't make sense. So what you can do is pin it. So if I hit the pin button, it's now pinned. I can still move it down here. You can see that I can make it bigger and stuff like that. That's going to flow with the text, hopefully. So if I go in here and just copy that paragraph and paste it twice, you see that moves with it. I obviously need to have more of a space around it so this text isn't breaking, but it will move with the text when the text expands, when more text appears. Let's get rid of that. But another way of doing it, so trying to grab hold of that. I knew this was going to be awkward. Right, I've now unpinned that and now it's moving around where I want it to be. So let's say it's in relation to something on this page. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Right, I want this to be pinned. And it is pinned, it's pinned to that. But can you see the pin? It's attached to the word situation. So if I've got that where I want it as a pull quote to the side, but I want it with that word situation, now we want it to move, but we want it to move. Let's duplicate that and paste that in. You can see it's following the word situation because I've actually used a floating pin. If you want to see what that looks like, it's this pin panel here. Inline makes it flow with the text. This one, it's floating, but I've got it hooked up to a word, in this case, situation. But I can move that pin. So this bit here, I can actually, now I've got it, and you can see a blue dot. If I want that moving in relation to that, so let's move it a little bit nearer to that, and then put some text in here. It's moving, but it's relative to that position. So that's the basics of wrapping. We've looked at wrapping around images and we've looked at wrapping around the text there. Even in this case, pinning it because it's outside of it. Right, but it gets trickier than that, obviously. Right, I will open a new file. So let me go and get that file. Right, we've looked at, why isn't that working? That's better. We're now going to look at a custom text wrap. I'll just tell you, behind the scenes, this is Mike's favourite demo. He likes this. All will become clear as to why. So we're looking at a custom text wrap. Right, custom in what way? Well, let's go and have a look. I've got my file, I just can't see it. Custom text wrap, there we go. New file. This is why Mike likes it. Right, it's this here that we're looking at. All right, we have a custom text wrap in terms of this text in this box is wrapping around the ice cream. But the ice cream isn't isolated. The ice cream image in the background, if I go in there to my layers, it's on the background. So there's nothing actually pushing up to it. So how do we tell it? How do we tell the text how to wrap around that? So we're going to recreate this. All right, I have got, we'll do everything from scratch apart from that, which is in here. So let's make sure we can see everything. There's the blue square over there. That's just a blue square. Over on this side, we want an image, and we want the image to fit the whole thing like that. Then we need the image. Right, there is a stock panel. If you go to View, Studio, Stock, this is the stock panel. And I'm looking for ice cream. And there is the image that I'm looking for. Now, if I double click on that, it will show me that image on Pixabay. But if I drag and drop it, it will drag and drop it in there, and it will say that it's by Steve PB. So thank you, Steve PB. We're going to use your image for this. Right, placement wise, you are using this here. So you could have all of the ice cream on. You could have it hanging off the end. And I think I had it hanging off the end about there. That'll do. Ish. That'll do. Right. Now I need to put on here, and you can see on this one, I've got 6 columns. Columns are actually irrelevant in this because I'm going to have to be very careful trying to work around this. So how do you do that? There's a couple of ways to do it. I'll do the tricky way, because if you can master the tricky way, you can do anything. We have the pen tool. Don't run away screaming. I know we all loathe the pen tool. But in this case, it's not actually that tricky. What I'll do is I'll start off up here. So I'm going to click, move down to the bottom corner and click. We've got that dirty great big border on it, but not to worry. I'm going to click here and then I'm going to start working around that hand by just clicking. It doesn't have to be perfect. We can fix it all later. But what I'm doing is creating my own path around that ice cream. That's not the best that I've ever done this. But then I am live, so things like that are bound to happen. Right, up to the corner and over there to finish it. And now I have a shape. It's not great, I know that. And we don't need the border on it. But it's actually quite handy to have the border on it at the moment because, you know, that's not great here. So what we can do is double click the shape. And now we've got square points and the square points are indicating where I clicked. So the first thing I can do is grab this and make it a bit better like that. But I can also in here, so if we look at this bit here in particular, where we're going round the side of the ice cream, I could actually delete these completely. We've got this one and this one. Actually, not that last one. I would bring that down so it's following the edge of that. And now you can see we've got a problem here. But what we can do, as I'm hovering, you should be seeing a tiny blue line. So when I'm in the middle of it, that's about the middle, I can actually just pull that round. And instead of having it with like really sharp edges, I've now got a rounded contour and I can use these handles to carry on finessing it. So I could do exactly the same here because between that bit and that bit, or actually that bit, these here are quite sharp and they don't need to be. They could be much more gentle than that, just by hovering over the middle and pulling it in there, like that. So, that's not bad now. I could tidy this bit up here. So I'm actually deleting points, quite a few of them, and pulling it up so it's a nice rounded curve around it. Right, that's almost it, believe it or not. It's much easier than you would imagine. So I've got this frame. I don't want a border on it. We don't want to see the border. We just want the text to look like it's magically floating. So we'll take that away. It's still there. There is the blue handles around it. And when we double click, tell me you're going into the text, not the image. Come on. Oh, you want to go into the image, don't you? Well, don't. Go into the curve. Right, there's our curve. At this stage, though, it is a curve. It's not a text box. So if I right-click on it, we can convert it, and we can convert it to either a picture frame, which is not what we want, because we want to put text in it. So you can convert it to a text frame. And now it's got all the magic of a text frame. So I'm going to go into there, and I'm going to go to the text and fill it with filler text. And there it is. And it's observing our hand-drawn, customised edge to it. But I'm going to take it a little bit further as well, because I'm going to put this on here. I think I had it saying indulge yourself. Right, obviously that is way too big. I think the yourself was, well, the whole thing was much smaller than that. And the yourself was actually smaller again. That was over on the left-hand page. But what I'm going to do is do it over here so we can actually see it happening. It's aligned correctly, but that was smaller. So let's put that in at 70. That looks fine. Right, but that needed to be over here. And of course, we've got the problem that that is still hovering meaningfully behind it. So we need to select the text that we want the other text wrapping around and change the wrap on the indulge yourself. If we make that square, we're going to end up with some text in the top left, which we don't want. So we'll do a jump on that and it will push the story down. And if we Control and W, not bad at all, but not perfect. Oh, have I got time to do it perfect? I reckon I have. The problem that we've got with this is at the bottom. That text is difficult to read against that background, but I like the image. Oh, what to do? Right, well, what I'm going to do is get a shape, and I'm going to draw that shape up there. I know it looks hideous, don't worry about it. It's about to be improved. Right, I need to put a colour in there that works. So I'm going to use the gradient tool, and I'm going to put a gradient from the top to the bottom. Right, the top bit's easy. It needs to match that. So that's really simple. I just need to choose this and get something that's close by. So if we look at that, there's the box we've got. We want it to match that basically. So let's click that. This end's a bit trickier because we can't have it matching that. We want it to be darker than that, but match. So what I did was I selected this. So it looked like that. A beautiful, beautiful sea behind it. Right, then I need to stretch it out so it covers the whole of that. And it kind of needs to go all the way over there as well, doesn't it? Oh dear. I know it's not looking good. If we put it behind the text, so behind that text there, not bad, apart from we can't see the hand anymore. What to do? Because we don't have a way of getting rid of that. Or do we? So I'm going to save the file. In essence, what I need to do is to mask it. Affinity Photo does that brilliantly, doesn't it? Well, handily, we have Studio Link. So I'm just going to hit the photo persona, and now I have all the tools of Affinity Photo. Right, what do I need to do with this then? Well, this bit here is my mask. So I'm going to call it mask, so that's what it is. And I need to put a mask on it. So mask the layer. There is my mask. Then I need to get the brush tool. And then I need in here, let me get my colours. I need one black and one white, just in case I make a mistake. So at the moment, the hardness is 100%, which means I can get in here quite nicely. What I'm going to do though, so I can see it, I think I'll change the opacity a bit so I can see what's going on. Because what I actually need to do is paint on the mask with black like that to get rid of the colour that is now sitting on top of the hand. So I could with this, because it's quite a big area, I can make the brush bigger with the square brackets like that. And I think it's not going to be perfect because I'm live and I'm using a mouse and it's taking forever. But let me try and get it decent enough. Decent enough it'll do. You'll notice with the brush, I've got the brush quite hard because I don't want any of the lighter stuff behind showing through. So as I say, I doubt it'll be perfect, but it'll be good enough. And I would take more time with it. I would also make the brush smaller, like this. I'd zoom in and out. I'd take a lot of time with it, and it'd be fine. Right, you can see the edge there. I have got a little bit more room that I can take away. So let's take that away. That'll do there. And I've got this bit to finish down here. You'll know with this one if you've gone too far, because it'll be really obvious, because there's quite a difference between the two. That's not bad. It'll do. Trust me, it'll do. Right, let's get that bit there. Awesome. Obviously, I could be better here, and I could be better up there. But I can either take 20 minutes to get this absolutely perfect or show you something sexy. So I decided we'd do the something sexy. If you go too far, if you do that, that's why I went for black and white, because I can use the X key and I can bring that in and get rid of it again. Okay. Right. Does that look reasonable? That looks reasonable. Not bad. It'll do. Right. What I do then is take this mask back up to its full size and have a look at it. And this side isn't too bad. This side, I can see a line. Not good. I can see a line. And I need to do more work on that as well. That's a bit off there, isn't it? To get rid of the line, you don't want to use the brush at 100% hardness. Take it all the way to the other end. Make the brush bigger and then brush that out. You have to be quite careful at that end because it's quite close to the hand. And at that point, ooh, that's much better. That is much better. Remembering at this point we're actually in photo, so we need to go back to Affinity Publisher. But that is when Studio Link is amazing. We flick from one app to the other and it's perfect. What that would have looked like without that little detour that we took was that. Now, it might not look bad when you first look at it, but when you've got that turned on, you turn it off, you really see the difference. So that is Studio Link and why it's totally amazing. Right, so the next bit. The next bit is getting devious. This is the bonus. Getting devious with text wrap. Uneven text content. So, last demo. Right, I have a file for this. Where's that disappeared to? This is actually something I've done for a place that Mike and I went. We loved it. Loved it. Would love to go back. Beautiful place to visit. So, file is opening. Or it's telling me it's opening. Could be lying. I think it is. Should we try that again? There we go. We're going to visit Scotland. Right, so we have a lot of pages in here. The one in question is this one. So that's what it looks like. That's the cover. And this is the page that's got the very tricky wrap on it. It doesn't look difficult, does it? Not as difficult as the ice cream. Right, if I bring that in though. Oh. Right, the reason that is difficult, maybe you want to tell me why that is difficult. But what we've got some text. We've got shapes behind it that are semi-transparent to make the text more readable against the background. Why is that so tricky? It doesn't look tricky, but it actually is. And there's a couple of ways to do it. It's tricky because you've got uneven columns. So there's two ways to do this. Let's start with separate text frames. So what we've got here is the space that we need. So I'm going to bring in all the Control and W stuff. We need to put some text in here. Right, the first thing you need to do if you're going to do it with separate text frames. So that would mean that this text frame is completely separate from that one. You're going to need to know where the middle of the page is. So if you drag on that and you go quite slowly, it's blue and it twangs to green. That's the middle. You can see the margins and you can see the middle. So you make your mind up at that point with your text frame, your first one. How close to the middle do you want it? Because that will touch right up to it. So you might want to take that back a fraction like that. It's remembered 2 and we need 1, so we'll do that. And we'll pull that down. There's the first text frame. And we can actually copy and paste that and move it over here. And that way they are both the same width. Like that. Right. Not too tricky at that point. Right. We've got our text frames. But looking in here, we're going to need the thing behind them. But first of all, let's get some text in and format it properly. So in our, I don't think that did copy it. Did you copy it? I'm not at all sure that you did. No, you didn't. Line toad. Right, let's get that in there and get that further up. So I can click over here. Right, going into text and insert filler text. Did that do anything? Oh, I've got all sorts going on here. Did that insert anything? There we are. There's text in it. You can't see it, but there's text in it. Right. The issue, of course, with this is the colour of it. And I think that's the right font. Let's make it 10 and let's make it white so we can see it. Alternatively, we should have a text style in here. So do we have body light? What do we have on the other one? Maybe I didn't. Let's just make it white. Right, now we can see it. Oh no, that's not right at all. There we go, body text. That's absolutely fine. Of course, we need this one to map to the other one. So we need this overflow here and we need to hook it into that one. Obviously, we still have a problem, but it's easily solved. The problem is we can't see it against the background very nicely. But if we draw that on, that is not bad at all. It doesn't look right, that's because of the stacking order. But if we put it behind there, not bad. Copy that, paste it, and move it over there. So I'm just trying to get it moved. Let's toggle these off, it's easier. Right, let's get that and move it over there. Obviously, it is too tall, but we can push that down. It should even twang. So let's get the text on there. And that's the first way to do it. And it works. Nothing wrong with that at all. If you add text to this one, it will flow to there. If you take stuff away, it will work. Why is that not the best way? Why is there a better way? Put in the chat if you can work it out. That is not my preference. It's easier in one regard, but I have another page. The fast and flexible way. So let's do it the fast and flexible way. It's easier. Right, what I'm going to do here is pretty similar. I'm going to draw on a text box and we want it up to about there, don't we? But this time I'm using the margins and I'm putting in a text box, one text box, not two, across the whole thing. And I'm going to say I want 2 columns. Now you know, and I know, that that's not going to work too well. So let's put the filler text in and see the issue. And there's the issue. So let's Command and A and apply the body style to it. So we've got exactly what we had in the other one. Right, I'm going to fix the issue behind this to start with, which is the dark box. So that's pretty simple to fix as well. So let's just get a dark box behind that. In fact, I'm going to pull the dark box all the way across and a little bit bigger over there. Right, and as long as that's behind it, it'll be fine. So in the layers, let's put that behind the text. Okay. Right, the good news, there is good news with this, it's really flexible. The bad news is, and that's not going to work, not at the top it's not, because we don't want text over the viaduct. So in essence, how do we use one text box and push the left-hand side down? Much easier than you think. We know that you can wrap text around things, because we've drawn things on, haven't we? And we've put images in them. And the text pushes out of the way. Well, obviously, nothing's going to happen there because that's got no wrap around it. But you can put a wrap, a jump wrap, on nothing. So this is a frame with a jump wrap on it, but there's nothing in it. There doesn't need to be anything in it, ever, if you don't like. Just use that to push that text down in one column out of the way on the left-hand side. Beautiful. Obviously, at that point, the text is fabulous. The background, less so. But we can fix that as well. So in our rectangle here, let's turn the text off. In our rectangle here, we can pull that down so it matches. See it twang there? It's twanging to the bottom of the placeholder on the left. And if we duplicate that and put it so it lines up with it, but only on the right-hand side, and then turn the frame text back on and get that right down there, that solves our problem, doesn't it? Oh, that's good. Now, why would I bother doing that? Because if you want text in 2 columns and you're happier doing that, then do that. But why is it better? It's faster and it's more flexible. But why? And that's because, let's imagine, you know the client from hell that we all have, even if it's yourself. I wonder if that text would look better in 3 columns. Well, this way, the separate text frames, oh, good luck with that. You're going to have to resize everything yourself. Obviously, you can use guides and stuff, but you're going to have to scale that and scale that one and then get one in the middle and then remap all of the text flow. Whereas the fast and flexible way, it's one box, it's one text frame. So if I wanted to change that to 3 columns, I can do that. Obviously, at that point, I've got a problem that my box here isn't right, but that's easily solved. Boom, and I'm done. So whether I want 4 columns or 27 columns, it doesn't matter. The text will take care of itself, and all I have to do is worry about and in some cases you won't even have that in the background because the image won't need it. In this case, it did. If you wanted this one in steps, you can even do that. So this really is taking it to the extreme. But you know what? Well, let's do it. Let's do it. This is the placeholder, the naked one, that's pushing this down. So if we move that over there, boom, that springs up to the top. Sadly, in the way of my viaduct. But this placeholder here, the naked one, if we copy and paste that, so we've got 2 of them, I can use that in the second column to push that down a little bit more. And then this bit over here, which isn't quite right there, I can copy that and paste that. I don't want it up here because obviously I can see it, but I can put it behind it and just pull it down. And now I've got 3 steps and it's easy. If you do it the separate column way, well, do you know what? Don't thank me later. It just gives you a whole lot more work, whereas this way gives you no work at all. I'm sure we can all resize a rectangle. Okay, so that was the bonus. That was the fast and flexible way. So when you're thinking through your documents, don't assume that what they tell you they want is actually what they're going to end up wanting. So try and think through, oh, well, what would happen if they wanted 4 columns or 1 column or 3 columns? And I'm going to build it that way, and it will just make it a whole lot easier. So let's go in here and do a wrap up of what we did. We looked at the terms, which were, and we then looked at those within the actual demonstrations, hierarchy, contrast, all of that. We set up a document completely from scratch. The biggest demo of all was the story layout, because it had the story layout initially, page 1 and 2, and it also had the story continuation. But instead of doing one of those, we actually did 3. And you can swap them in and out without having to redo everything. So you can check what it would look like with continuation 1 and then 2 and then 3. And when you've made your mind up, just delete the 2 you don't want and leave the 1 you do and map the story to it. And you're done. Then we looked at text wrap, both in terms of images and pull quotes. The custom text wrap was the ice cream. So that's actually drawing it with the pen tool. But you can edit it, and it's fantastic. And then the bonus, which was getting devious. So something that looks difficult. I mean, the ice cream, it was a custom shape. But the Scotland one, it was actually stepped. So you don't always need to draw something custom. I could have done something custom with that. It would have worked. But it also worked just as well, in fact, a little bit better, because I was going to have to fiddle with the background anyway. So there you go. Now, if you would like more of us too, and you know, who wouldn't? Oh, it's WWDC on Monday. How did that happen? Because it's June this week. How did that happen? WWDC is Apple going to entertain us with kit that doubtless we can't afford, but we'll want anyway. So what we do is we're going live an hour before Apple, because they only piddle on our parade. So we're going to have an hour's fun and games before they come in and mention price and things. It is 5 p.m. UK time, noon PT and 3 p.m. ET. and that's Mac Bytes, and it will be on Mac Bytes FM. So we have an absolute blast in the chat. It's always great fun. Right, coming up, I'm going to have more future Affinity Publisher sessions. I've actually got 3 sort of sorted. Who's ahead of herself then? Right, I've got one dedicated to magazines. I've got another one about tutorials and a tricky little one about classified ads. Everything that is on here is available on demand at youtube.com/Elaine Giles. I've got 2 playlists. One is all things Affinity. So that QR code will get you to that playlist. And there's another one that is just the Affinity Publisher stuff. So if you don't want to miss out, make sure that you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, and they will notify you when I go live so you don't miss out. Right, we love you guys. If you love us and you've enjoyed yourself, please give us a like, because it really does make a difference with YouTube. They're quite snotty if you don't get likes, aren't they? Right, there is an email list that I have, which is elainegiles.com/VIP, and you will get first notification of both live sessions and replays later. And I do think that's it for that. So we need our Q&A, don't we? So where did that disappear to?
3 questions in the chat.
Right, I will go and get them. Let's head off to the Q&A, which means I'm going to need another app on here. I wonder where I put that. There we go. Don't you hate it when an app updates itself and you can't find a thing? Or is that just me? Oh, and even better, when I hit the folder that I know you've put the questions in, it says it's empty. Couldn't make this up. Oh, hang on. Do you want to read the question out, Mike? Let me turn you on, if you pardon the expression. Right, am I live? Well, I can't hear you, but I'm sure the guys will let us know when they can.
Muriel says, would changing colours for subtitles be okay, or should she avoid it?
No, you can, whatever looks best. I mean, if you think about the difference between a corporate report and a guide to local play schools, they would look incredibly different. So it's less that there's a strict rule and more what looks best for the situation. So colour is a good way to do that. I've started using a notes app, and the one I had no option for colour. The one I'm using now does. And I had everything black, and I was fiddling with the CSS, as you do, like you've not got enough to do. And I was trying to get the sizes different so I could really see the difference. And it was nigh on impossible because it was CSS. And then I thought, well, what if I change the colour? So now I've got headings that are black, blue, green, orange and red. It looks fabulous. Other people might be puking in a bucket, but I think it looks fabulous. So horses for courses, whatever makes sense to you, whatever you think looks right in the circumstances.
Next question. Mexican says, in InDesign you can fill text boxes with a colour. Is that not the case for Publisher?
Yes, you can. The reason that I did it separate was for flexibility. You can. I find it a bit odd the way it works. So yes, you can fill the text box, but it would be the text box. And if I wanted it extending outside, then it's more flexible to have it separate. The other thing is, it's very easy to look at something and think, because it's not in the same place. Let me show you. Let's come out of here. No, we don't want to move on. We want to come out. Right. Let's put a text box on here. That's right. Right. We got shapes. So you've seen shapes go in, and that's got a background on it. If I bring a text box in, it doesn't matter how many columns it is, but we will put some text in it. So there's the filler text. You can put a background colour on it. But the way everything works in Affinity, you would think to yourself, right, well, there's a background colour, only it's not. And you're looking at it thinking it's got black background colour. No, it's not. It's because of the way it does it. It puts it in a totally different place. So to do that, you'd need to go into your text frame settings, and you'd need to set that to a fill. So let's assume we've got a black one in there. You can see that actually fills it. And then in there, I can then start fiddling with, not the gradient, where are we? I can start fiddling in there. So it's got a semi-transparent background. So yes, you can. But then what you would need to do is if you look at your, why aren't you moving? That's better. Right. If you then look at it, the text is bang up to the edge. So then I'd have to start applying to the text a margin between the text and the edge of the box, which with the other one, I don't need to do. I can just fiddle with that separately. So that's why I do it that way. But yes, you can do that. Do we have any other questions?
Are you going to add the WWDC session to the Matt Bites calendar?
Yes, of course.
Right. When
I get round to it. You can either have a live session or you can have everything on the admin side. Perfect. Choice is yours, but no live session. That's the way it works, I'm afraid. Right, let me see it. Oh, this hasn't even got the right folders on. What's it done to me, Mike? Do you know what's so annoying? I can see it on the desktop. But I can't see it on the desktop. Oh, I know what I can do. Hang on a minute. Let's do that and let's do that. Oh, I can see it now. Right, let's have a look in here. So we've answered that one, haven't we? And we've answered that one.
We've answered that one.
We've answered that one. Oh, I think we're done. Surely we've had more questions than that.
No.
Oh, Renee's in. Hello, Billiard Boy. How did it go? Did you win? Do we know if there was a winning happened?
He won one and lost one.
Oh. And you didn't hang around for the decider? Because there was a publisher show on. Right. Oh, I've got some comments here. Is that pronounced Sven or Svein? Svein? Help me with the pronunciation. So grateful for this. I have 2 projects I want to do. Family cookbook. Oh, cookbook was one of my examples in an upcoming one, where I incorporate some handwritten recipes from my mum and my grandmother. That sounds fabulous. And the other one is a wedding album for a friend. You ended up taking lots of pictures. Oh, that's going to be amazing. Now, they're the kind of things, both of them, where if you create enough master pages, it'll be a doddle, she said. But it's great practice because you can create, with jobs like that, you might want to create something like, 15, 20 different layouts. But those layouts can be repurposed. So it's always worthwhile, taking the time and putting the layouts in. Oh, that's going to be amazing. Right. Have you put any more in there yet? Now it stops scrolling. Oh, well, at least it's only one of our notes apps that stops scrolling. Oh, no, I see what's happened. That's gone on top of it. Right.
Mexicans put another comment in there.
Oh, hang on. Let me get to at the top.
Yes, it is in the back channel.
Completely understood. Thank you for answering the question. No problem at all. You're thinking of purchasing the suite. There's weekend sale. Oh, when you say this weekend sale, the sale is going off in about 15, 16 hours. I got an enquiry from somebody who was asking about layouts, pointed them to this session and said that the sale is going off tonight, basically. So at the moment, you could get all 3 apps for the price of 1.5. So it's definitely worth it. It is definitely worth it. I mean, if you've got access to InDesign, you're used to InDesign, I think there's still options where this is a really good way of working. And vice versa. I have been known to dabble on the dark side in Photoshop. I actually have a problem with particularly photo at the moment, Affinity Photo. It's really slow to start. So if I've got something, particularly a smart object image, and I want to edit it, I'm just double clicking in, it's opening Photoshop. But I appreciate not everybody has access to Photoshop and a lot of people are trying to get away from the subscription. So it's a really good time to buy. However, be aware there is supposed to be Affinity Publisher for iPad coming out in the summer. I don't know what they consider the summer. I mean, the British summer's about a day and a half, isn't it? We're just not sure when that'll be. Any time between February and November, but we're just not sure when. So if that's going to come out, there may be an update to the other apps. Whether that is going to be paid for or not, I don't know. There has never been a paid for update of Affinity Designer, Photo or Publisher. It's version 1. But it feels like they're heading to version 2. I mean, wouldn't be able to give them the money fast enough myself. I've been using Designer since 2015, so 7 years and no update. So I would pay for it, but just be aware of that. But today, and only today, I think it finishes today, it is at 50% off. Right. Oh, Tracy quite likes the idea of a photo album layout. I will add it to the list. Jonathan, you've answered your own question there when you least expect it. So keep your eye out. Can I just say, the more it's asked for? Oh,
I answered it on his behalf.
Oh, actually. You answered it. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, yes, when you least expect it. When you least expect it. But the more mails we have to send, the less likely that is, because what was I like sending a mail? Bad words were said. Very bad words were said. It was all to do with trying to get permission so you could actually see the image. And I got very cranky. I don't like writing mails. I really don't. Life's too short. But obviously, if you don't know it's on, then you're not going to come, are you? This is why you need to be subscribed on YouTube. But yes, Jonathan, I concur with my co-host. When you least expect it. Have you noticed he's not asked about MacBites just after hours? Not bothered about MacBites then? Just saying. Right, I think I've answered all the questions then. Have I? Yes, so, yeah. I think I have.
Yeah.
I think I have. Right, so what's going on in the chat? Peter says someone's done a video on the slow loading. Oh, I did a video on the slow loading, Peter, because I thought I'd fixed it. So I had this video and I had the slow version loading and then I had them loading normally. And I turned my back and it stopped working again. So I thought, well, I won't put that video up because there's not much point. I thought I'd fixed it and I haven't fixed it. But the slow loading drives me up the wall because, you know, when you think about the criticism of Photoshop, there's always a lot of criticism that it's slow. It starts, I think it was 15 times faster than Photo at the moment, which is poor. That's a poor show. I don't know what it's trying to do. I mean, obviously contact the mothership. But it does take a long time to start. But not every time. If you open it and it takes, 30 seconds, and then you close it, you open it again, couple of seconds. I guess the idea is that you don't close them. Have them running all the time and call it done. But yeah, it does annoy me, that. Oh, a family history book. That'd be good, wouldn't it? Oh, I'm liking that. Tracy's quite happy to give them money too. I can't see them charging more than 50% for an upgrade. I really can't. But I'd give them the full amount. I mean, I'm the idiot. I bought them all 3 times. You're wondering how. I bought them. I got Affinity Designer from the App Store because they only distributed it from the App Store originally. Then I bought it direct from them. And then I bought the iPad version. Then I bought the Windows version. So that's 2 on the Mac. Yeah, 4 versions of that. Publisher, I've got 2 versions of. 1 for Windows. 3 versions. 1 for Windows, 1 for Mac from the App Store, and 1 direct. And the same for Photo. So Photo, I've got 4 versions. The iOS version, the Windows version, and 2 versions on the Mac. So when it comes to completing the family, it'll be the Affinity Publisher version for iPad. And then if they come out with all version 2s, I'm going to be bankrupt, aren't I? Oh, well. Worth it. And I did get a free upgrade to Eagle today, so I'm quite happy about that. Let's have a look. Now you see, Renee's getting clever here, isn't he? If we don't call it after hours, but we did it every Friday, then he wouldn't be missing his billiards, would he? I see what you're doing there, Renee. I'm liking it. Oh, dear. I do not need more practice sending emails, Peter. Absolutely not. You know what they say? Outsource it. The thing is, I can't outsource it because it doesn't work. That's the problem. We had a workflow and it broke. Thanks for that, Apple. Thanks for that. So because it broke, it's clunky. I should definitely outsource it. Maybe Tracy'd like to do it. What do you think? If I could get the images working. You can do it, but you've got to log in like 3 times and push buttons and stuff. And I'm in create mode, not in send an email mode. Just subscribe on YouTube and then you won't miss it. Okay, have I got everything in here? I think I have. So keep your eye out. If you're not subscribed to the VIP list, you need to be subscribed to the VIP list. Obviously, YouTube should let you know, but I don't know if it does. Yours let you know tonight.
It let me know I was going live.
Yeah, it didn't let me know I was.
No.
So I don't know if it actually sends you an email. This is why the more likes a video gets, the more notice they take. And the more they will send out a reminder so you don't miss it. So that's why. Anyway, I think I've got all of the questions, so we can head off and have something to eat. I think I deserve a treat. And now I've seen the ice cream, and I know you like ice cream. Ice cream could be where it's at. Oh, indeed. Right, okay then. So we will head off to have something to eat. But we will be back sooner rather than later, so keep your eye out. But for the moment, I'm going to say goodnight from me.
And good night from me.
And we will both see you next time. Night, guys.